Richard what he was going to, really looking forward to it. And I'm not surprised, he can't wait to get back to singing in his choirs. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. So I'm your VP Mentoring, and this is an interim report back. I've spoken to 25 of our members, and the way I've adapted to it is to say, what skill do you want more of in your professional life or your personal life? And who do you admire within the club who's got that skill that you could benefit from? So the way I wanted to tackle this today was to give an example. And for that, I've chosen Paul, our president, as the person being mentored, and Robert Taylor, as his mentor. So Paul, what is the skill that you wanted to get out of Early Birds professionally or personally?
Thank you, Richard. So I guess I wanted to be able to relate better to a group of people. And so this, the starting point is that I've moved out of a trading role into a managing role. And so I'm more often engaging groups of people that aren't traders or talking to people in groups just like this. And I just wanted to get better at having an impact on those kind of discussions. And so what I know is that from like the way that I speak, I have a tendency to be very corporate or be very scientific in the way that I deliver messages. So I was looking for a member that was much more vulnerable or more able to show their emotions. And I also, I would say, wasn't immediately on the front foot with this. So I wasn't necessarily out there evaluating everyone and saying, who should I spend time with? But definitely after a discussion I had with Richard, I said, okay, look, if I'm to take my speaking to the next level, which is actually the whole point of being here at Early Bird Speakers and practicing every week and delivering speeches, then having someone to help as a guide on that journey would be very helpful, especially to set challenges for me and things that I never would have thought up on my own as goals to pursue. And so one of them that Robert helped me with was just simply the subject matter. So speaking to him, it naturally came about, okay, I think I feel uncomfortable talking about diversity type things. Let me actually speak about diversity every week. And that just got me a bit more, I don't know, comfortable with the subject, especially because it's very topical in my work. And also I do a lot of activism in this space in my workplace. And the other part of it is relates to actually showing emotion. So in the work setting, it's pretty rare to show much emotion beyond anger in these kind of speeches or these kind of environments. And so that's definitely what I want is a wider emotional range to be able to present and work within the corporate environment. And so like what I'm doing now is a series on emotions, if maybe everyone picked up on that. And again, it's something I never would have thought of, came out of the discussions we had with Robert. And it's hugely beneficial because it sets my challenges and something for me to work on that I then slowly get incrementally a little bit better at each week.
Thank you. So moving on to Robert now. Robert, how did you set up the framework for working with Paul?
Well, interesting. Frameworks, funny word. For me, it was about trying to create a series of opportunities to push Paul on how to connect with us. And I had for me, what was in the background was Paul's hugely capable and knowledgeable, and there are lots of other people he can talk to about being president. But I was specifically interested in pushing buttons on connection, how to speak to us as our family rather than as an imparter of lots of clear information. I was interested in setting Paul challenges that we'd get a bit more of a sense of how he thinks and feels, and not just what he knows, useful as that is. I was very careful not to have too much input about specifics. And I'll give you an excellent example of how it's worked. As a result of me pushing Paul on, making sure we hear more about how he feels and how he gets to certain points. At the end of last week's meeting, we had a special item where Paul talked about leadership and the leadership team. And I was absolutely delighted to see that was a fact-filled presentation, but one got a real sense, and something I've not heard before at the club, about what it feels like to be a president, and also how it feels to lead a team who are being very self-directed and working really hard to pull things together for the club. So I have no idea about what Paul's going to do every week, but I'm listening for how he's doing it. And it's been a fascinating exercise.
Right, so it's not getting involved in the content of what he does. What kind of questions do you use to draw out from Paul the kinds of things that he wants?
Well, I'm interested in what Paul is trying to do. As Paul has mentioned, there is a great interest, a current interest in diversity. So I would be having a very conversational romp with Paul, pushing to see where, if he's got some ideas, how he might present them to the club, trying to get Paul to empathize about what it's like to be an audience member for the weekly address, and then step well back from actually saying, this is what I think you should do, Paul. And that's entirely up to him. And as I was saying earlier, he has a whole raft of ex-presidents who know about the dynamic and the practicalities of leading the club. But this is more about how it's done. And I'm delighted with the progress so far. And it's been a wonderful way to get to know my president, because we don't have the usual Freemasons Hall contacts at breakfast and in between and afterwards.
Right, thank you, Robert. So thanks, Paul and Robert, for filling us in on how you're working together. What I'd like to invite other members to do is to, as I've said, identify some kind of skill that you'd like to have more of in your presentations, professionally or personally, and then cast your mind around the group and have a conversation with somebody. It can be a one-off. It doesn't have to last for a whole year. And I see that I'm out of time now. So back to you, Madam President.